we start out in the Berg. That's right. The confluence, the Monongahela, the Allegheny Rivers forming the Ohio River right there in Pittsburgh, PA. Beautiful bridges, nice skyline there in Pittsburgh. That was the setup as davanteadams made his much-anticipated debut in the cockpit for the Jets suck, as Davante's Jets taking on Russell Wilson and the team from Pittsburgh. It was on the Peacock with Chris Collinsworth and Mike Tirico. And I don't know if you were watching this or not. Maybe you tuned it out. You were just watching the baseball. We were going back and forth as we were watching both at the same time. It is our good mitzvah of the day. So Russell Wilson threw for not one but 2 touchdowns. He ran for another. Russell Wilson accounting for 3 touchdowns. Pittsburgh steamrolled late in this game, a resounding exclamation point win, 37-15, a beatdown, as the Jets were so bad they're going to be sent out to the boneyard after that performance. The better story in the losing locker room, and that is where we will go, the New York side of things. Let us discuss the question. What jumps out at you after the latest loss from Aaron Rodgers and the Jets? So I've got Rubberneckers, Mensa, and Custer. And we will combine all of these things together, and we will throw our terrible towel in the air everywhere is what we're going to do. So the first thought I have watching this game is how Aaron Rodgers has had an unscheduled, this was unplanned. He's had a little trip. It appears, watching the Jets offense with Rodgers under center, that he has decided to take an in-season darkness retreat. Wowzers. Man, that was another winnable game, and the Jets came out. They were up 15-6 early. They had possession of the ball, a chance to add on to that lead, and then you make the big mistake, and next thing you know, the Steelers take advantage of it, and the flag is up for Russell Wilson and Pittsburgh, and Rodgers ended up hand-delivering. Now, one of the interceptions was tipped and whatnot, but the passes were questionable as Rodgers set Pittsburgh up in business here. And then after the game, Rodgers, the quote which everyone's breaking down and analyzing, he said that the team came out flat, that they didn't have the proper amount of energy. He said, Sunday Night Football on NBC, the only show on TV, he says, I live for these games, and I just don't quite understand why the energy was a little bit flat. So he said also at the beginning of the game, before the game, said it was flat from the Jets, but they actually got off to a decent start in the game, and then everything went to hell after that. But it's pretty obvious watching Gang Green play here, watching the Jets and all these primetime games so far this season, that you and I are rubberneckers. Okay, we're not fans, we're not observers, we're rubberneckers, and we're watching this slow motion train wreck of a Jets season. And say, well, it'd be a plane crash, but I think it's more fun when it's a train wreck. The New York defense, the vaunted Jet defense, oh my God, they're so good. The Jets defense allowed the Steelers to score on each of their final 5 possessions of this game. So Pittsburgh scored the game's final 31 points, and the Jets also had a missed field goal in that stretch of time, as it's Murphy's Law. Anything that can go wrong is going wrong at this particular point at the worst possible time for the Jets. And the last 4 weeks, Aaron Rodgers, the great savior, I know people in Wisconsin and Packer fans are smiling from ear to ear right now, enjoying some schadenfreude at the expense of Aaron Rodgers, because the last 4 weeks, Aaron Rodgers, 5 touchdown passes, 6 interceptions, a passer rating of 77.1 for the Hall of Fame quarterback, Aaron Rodgers. And, oh, by the way, the Jets, I believe, are 0-4 in their last 4 games and are quickly free-falling at this point. Now, the good news is they're in a division with the Patriots and also the Dolphins. So because of that, the math still works out in their favor. Buffalo is the team they have to worry about at this particular point. Now, on the other side, are you going to go thumbs up or thumbs down? Have the Steelers now solved their quarterback conundrum, with Russell Wilson and his performance in this game. So I'm not going thumbs up. I'm not going to go thumbs down. I'm going to go thumbs sideways. My thumb is sideways at this particular point. I'm not convinced. I am not convinced that Russell Wilson is going to be able to even play at this level. And it's not like Russ was perfect in this game. He was not. I mean, there were some passes that could have been intercepted and whatnot, but weren't. Fine. That happens, whatever. But he had 3 touchdowns and was a big part of everything in that onslaught, that absolute domination at the end of the game for the Pittsburgh Steelers when they just took ownership of the game. And so Russ played well, and I'll give him his due on that. But I'm in the middle. My thumb's in the middle on that. I would pump the brakes on the celebratory party because I know that given enough time, teams will be able to figure this out, and it will not be sustainable. And a lot of what the Steelers did was a gift from the Jets. And so I would say the Steelers are still they're in the eye of the hurricane at this particular point. That's how I would describe things. Russell Wilson took off like a rocket in the second half of this particular game, and for a night, Mike Tomlin looks like an absolute Mensa. Even though early on in this game, if my TV was working properly, they were chanting for Justin Fields, his name. There was rhythmic chanting going on and all that. But Wilson, in order for us to be convinced, he has to do this again. There has to be a carbon copy of this type of performance again. Because even with the Broncos, as bad as he was with the Broncos, occasionally he'd have good numbers, and people say, oh, well, Russell Wilson, there you go. That's where they got him from Seattle. And then he'd have 4 or 5 bad games after that, and that's where we are. So I would imagine at some point Justin Fields will get back out there either because Russ won't play well or he'll get hurt. That's the most likely scenario. But the bar is very low. Pittsburgh had the 28th passing offense. That's why Justin Fields was benched, because they were not a good team at moving the ball down the field through the air, despite all the fanboys and all the ones that had the brown nose supporting Justin Fields. The reality of the situation, Mike Tomlin, fortunately, it's like, well, I live in reality land. I don't live in social media land, the Matrix. I don't. All right, now, final point. To Wisconsin we go, and Aaron Rodgers' old team there, the Green Bay Packers, get a late field goal and knock out Houston in a game where C.J. Stroud did not play all that well. In this game. But the story was what happened pregame. And someone we've talked a lot about, if you've been with us on this show over the last couple of years, is back on our radar again, and that would be Texans wide receiver Stefondiggs. Very amusing moment here for Stefondiggs, who's on the Looney Tunes spectrum there, Stefon, because pregame, about 20 minutes before kickoff, Stefondiggs and Jair Alexander had a verbal exchange. They got into it. Jair Alexander, he's defensive back for the Packers. So they got into it on the field on the Green Bay sideline. Now imagine, if you will, there was one member of the Texans, Stefondiggs, and a whole gaggle of Green Bay players, because it's on the Green Bay sidelines. Stefondiggs, talking about this, said, I'm never the bigger person. This is a quote. I'm never the bigger person regarding the pregame scuffle. He said, I don't give an F if I'm by myself, he said, or with a million. I'm never the bigger person. This is a direct quote from Diggs. I ain't letting S word go, like a ship. Ain't letting that go, Diggs said postgame. He said they picked it up or whatever, but I ain't with the football tough guy. And then he said the S word. For some reason, we're not allowed to say the S word. I think it's fine. We're all adults here, but for some reason we can't say it. So any insights you would like to add to Texans wide receiver Stefondiggs getting into it with multiple Green Bay players and saying he's never the bigger person? So I'd like to begin this part of the Maller monologue by pointing out he is accurate, that is a solid point of self-awareness from Stefondiggs. He does not follow the normal football decorum. Does not. And Diggs, it would appear also, based on what we've heard from what happened here, that he has a bromance with American legend General Custer, that famous store we've all heard growing up and going to school in the U.S. and all that. I assume they still teach it, maybe not these days. The wokesters might not like it, but that's the gold standard for being vastly outnumbered. Little Bighorn. You had, I think the estimate is around 1,500 to 2,000 Sioux warriors, and General Custer came in there with about 250 U.S. troops, and did not go so well. Did not go so well there at Little Bighorn. We know how that turned out, and so Stefondiggs, not only does it not turn out well for him in that, but then his team loses on a late field goal. It is the Ben Mount, but they did cover the spread, so if you're a gambler, you got screwed on that.